Good morning, church. It's good to be with you here today. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, and my dogs are on the alert. They are staring out the window at a couple of turkeys that are wandering around in my yard and in the neighbor's yard, and they're letting me know often that they are out there. And I was just thinking about that, and it reminds me that, what gets me all excited and sets me on alert? What should I be watchful for? And, as Christians, we have a couple things that we ought to be on the lookout for. And I think our reading in Ruth can tie into this kind of silly analogy here. But number one, as Christians, we are to be on the lookout for odd things that enter our yard. Um, and Paul, in our reading in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 today, he reminds us that we're not to have anything in common or any kind of yoking or affiliation with those things that are not of God. Because what does light have to do with darkness? And what does Christ have to do with Belial? What we can't, he'll say in another spot, you can't have a fellowship at the table of Christ and the table of demons. And so we're told too that people will try to come among us like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And so it's good for us to be like my silly dogs and to be on the lookout for things that are odd or different so we can keep the bride pure. And that is something that is really important. The purity of the church. We need to be fighting for that and to be alert, to be good watchmen. The other thing that we can be on the lookout for as we conclude this sweet book of Ruth full of all sorts of interesting things, we're revealed today, it's the lineage of King David. It's how David came to be. And we are delighted to read that history and the righteousness of Boaz and how Ruth uses her feminine wiles to bring him about. Basically, Naomi and Ruth concoct a scheme to get Boaz to come along the way that they want things to go, and that's how it is so often. And so the Israelites at that time, they weren't necessarily watching for a king, but we are watching for a king to come back. We are watchful for when our king is going to return and when he will take us home and close the chapter on this book, this life that we have here. And we can't live a day without thinking about the second coming of our Lord, his return and his advent among us again. And so, church, whether it's in our reading in Ruth today, in 2 Corinthians, or whether we're just looking out the window at turkeys, we should be reminded, be watchful, both for aberrations that come in so that we can keep them out and keep the bride pure, and be watchful also for the return of the King. He's coming back someday, and we look forward to that. I love you, church. Happy Saturday.